You're listening to Two Girls, One Crossword.
Y'all ever get riled up when you're having a conversation? Probably. But I mean,
once or twice, yeah.
Once or twice in this short life of mine. Get the blood
flowing. Chelsea and I get riled up easily. That's why I like her as a friend, because if I come to the table complaining about something, immediately
I will not let her down. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
We've got thoughts, we've got opinions. And the other thing is, a good friend, folks, a good friend, when you come to the table complaining, isn't immediately meeting you with like, oh, well, you should think about it this way. That is not a good friend.
Mm-mm.
That friend needs to realize what the need is in that situation, and the need is to vent, to steam.
Yeah.
To like let it off. And so you got to meet that person head on.
You can come with like a different point of view a little later in the conversation, but you have to start,
We have to be on the same page. We got to be revving our engines at the same time.
How do you feel about this? Is an enemy of your friend an enemy of you?
Yes.
All the time, though? What if you're friends with two people, though, and like you like them both, but they don't get along with each other? Do you choose one, or are you able to like... I think it depends the context and how you meet.
It depends. Okay, so like if you came to me and you were like, this bitch that I just met, I'd be like, this bitch. No questions asked. But if you came to me and you were like, this bitch about someone we were just friends with like 5 minutes ago, I'd be like, I'm hearing you. What's the vibe? I'd hear you out for sure.
To be fair, I rarely complain about other women, but...
True. Yeah, sorry for the gendered term there, but yeah.
Yeah, if it's a guy that we're complaining about, immediate on shit list. No questions asked.
Literally, you don't even need to ask me. I'm there. I've already met you there. Well, that's how you have a good friend.
Has a friend like that out there. If you don't, you can listen to our podcast and pretend that we're your friends and we're all having a conversation while we do Two Girls, One Crossword, your favorite weekly Podword Crosscast. I tried to do a segue there.
That was good. That was pretty good. I'm Chelsea Rowan. Thanks for listening.
I'm Grace Japinka. Thanks
and
for being here.
Two of your fake friends. Happy to fill in, I guess.
There's a girl on TikTok who is a bridesmaid for hire.
We were just talking. Maybe that's what it is.
You and I can do that together. We'd be like, you need two bridesmaids and we can all act like BFF.
Oh my God.
I feel like
we all met at summer camp.
And you know what else would be good is that I feel like I could do a really good speech. Be like, pay me extra. I'll do the best speech of your life. Because, ladies and gentlemen, if you didn't know, I did a speech once at my friend's wedding. People are talking to me about it all night. People still bring it up, apparently, to the couple.
She's famous. You know, everybody's been to one of those weddings where the speech has been subpar, to say the least. And and sometimes you're sitting in the audience, you're like, somebody get that mic away from them. Like, rip it out of their hands. I've listened to some pretty crappy
You
speeches.
Gotta keep it short. You know?
Yeah. And also, like, sometimes people like make the speech about themselves, and it's like, or you realize that like they've asked somebody to do the speech that doesn't actually know them as a couple, and then it's just awkward. Or like, you get a frat bro up there's like, we used to take shots off of strippers' backs, and you're like, not the time or place.
I feel like, I don't remember like ever seeing a really bad speech because I feel like I haven't been to too many weddings, but I could see like, people talk too much, they meander. Believe it or not, Chelsea and I wouldn't do that. Even though you might think we would talk too much and make it about ourselves. No. If I'm getting paid to deliver.
She's going to deliver.
Yeah.
Okay, she's got...
If anyone's interested in that, in the Chicago area, or someone who may want to have like two bridesmaids for hire.
Seriously.
Let us know.
We're like vibe smiths. We'll bring the vibes.
Oh, yeah.
And
for sure. And then you never talk to us again after.
We also love acting. So like,
oh yeah,
give us a character.
We could make like a special story for each, or we are the same characters every time, and we just like build in. It's like world building.
Yeah, this is our version of D&D.
Yeah,
we both have partners who like playing D&D, but we don't like that kind of D&D. We like this kind of D&D.
Because other people are unwittingly playing with us.
Yes, a real world implementation. I'll put it that way.
I actually feel like that would be fun. Well,
we will talk about this off air because it would be a lot of fun.
I'm sure there's really rich people who like want to fill out their bridal party. And,
right. Where do you advertise this? Like Fiverr? We
Maybe.
should just put something up on Fiverr and see what happens.
Yeah.
Anyway, if you find us on Fiverr.
But like, I want to charge a lot of money for it.
Oh.
Like, I'm not doing it for nothing.
No. And also, that's, yeah.
I mean, it's a long day. Like, if we have to get ready with them.
Yeah. We're going to be sweating.
Yeah.
All day.
I don't know. We have to work out the logistics, but as soon as we do that, we'll be available. And there's no shame in that either. I mean,
no.
Sometimes you just want to have the appearance of having more friends, or maybe your friends are like all pregnant and they can't come, or
yeah.
You're marrying someone who has like 15.
That's something else. That's something else. I mean, whatever. You do you with your partner, but like I feel like
have a lot of friends.
The perfect partner is somebody who can match your energy, and not just like your energy in like your personal romantic life, but also like in your friendship life. If you like, I don't know how people who are extreme introverts can date extreme extroverts.
But I think a lot of people do. Well, I feel like sometimes there's usually one person in the couple who's more outgoing, I would say.
Sure. I would say Matt is probably more, it's hard to say, outgoing, like in more of like a casual setting. I cannot be outgoing with people I don't know. But if you know me even for like 2 days, you're done. You're done.
Believe it or not, Chelsea and I are really not. I would never describe us as being outgoing unless we're like together, though.
Yeah, it's a match made in heaven. And we've always said that.
Anyways,
we gotta go.
Great business idea. Let's cancel the podcast. We're going to put all our time and energy towards that.
Perfect.
Let's do our Polapalooza.
What did you post for us this week?
Oh, so last week I talked about name origins. So I was curious to see. So I asked 2 different questions. The first one was, who is your first name named after? And options were parents, grandparents. I said distant relative, but it's like any other relative other than your parent or grandparent. And then no one. And 70% of people said they were named after no one. Their first name was just random.
That's me.
20% said a distant relative. And then 10% said one of their parents. No one said a grandparent. I feel like in the U.S., unless we're talking about like, I feel like Hispanic people, like a lot of my cousins on my Cuban side, everyone has the same name. Everyone's named after, a parent. But I feel like most people just have random first names.
It's very common to just have like a random name. When you meet someone that's like, I'm John Smith Jr., you're like, whoa, that's weird. And it also feels like it's like a different tax bracket kind of situation too.
Well, my cousin his kid is the 7th. Yeah. So it's really been like passed down. So now it's like they can't not do it,
I'm Jiminy Cricket the 29th. Like,
exactly.
You're done.
And that is his name. How'd you know?
I'm really good at reading the room.
I had a suspicion that more people have their middle name named after. Like, my niece's middle name is Grace. Thank you very much. So I said, who's your middle name named after? Same options. And 36% of people said one of my parents. That was the highest. Most people voted for that.
I feel like there's something egotistical about that. I'm not saying that's necessarily wrong. It's just
I would do it. Maybe.
I know. I'm not saying it's bad to be egotistical necessarily.
28% of people said their middle name is named after no one, or they don't have a middle name. And then it was tied. 18% each said a grandparent or a distant relative. So like my middle name is after my aunt. I don't know if it's after her. It's a very common name, but yours is after your grandma.
Great-grandmother.
Great-grandma. So that counts as grandparent.
It does.
But yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
The more you know about your listeners,
I like the idea of
and then
having like, I guess any name can mean something. It doesn't need to be named after someone. But like my girlfriend is Jewish and she's Ashkenazi, so everyone is like named after someone who's died. And so like her and her sibling have the same name of like their great grandparents or great great grandparents who were married to each other. But my girlfriend has like the feminine version of
I love Alex's
the
name.
man's name. Yeah.
It's a good
Alex
name.
with an I.
With an I.
But it's cool. That's like, but you got to switch it up sometimes. It's nice because you can just use the same first letter or like the same vibe, Anyway. That's
wow.
it on names.
That's it. And now we know all about our listeners. Thanks for participating in the polls. And if you want to answer our polls, follow us on Twitter or whatever. Just answer our polls every week on Twitter. And if you say something crazy enough, we may talk about it on our podcast, but maybe not. But who knows? Basically, what I'm saying is we want to up our engagement. So get to Twitter,
and
comment, subscribe.
The polls are normally posted between, like, they run from Wednesday to Thursday. So if I remember. So,
yes, if she remembers.
Sometimes I do it a little late and they only are up for a little. Most of the time I do it on Wednesday, though. Now I'm using my agenda again, so.
There she is. I, who am in charge of the Instagram, need a little bit more of a shove in the right direction. But what can I say? I do social for a living, so
You're doing great, given the circumstances.
Thank you. Does that mean it's time to move into our heights and our shites?
It is.
Given the circumstances? Okay.
I'm worried that we did the same topic this week.
I am extremely worried that we did the same topic this week.
Maybe we did. All right. I'm going to see if this puzzle comes up in your heights and shites, then I'll be worried.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say which one it is. But
I'm not either, but I turned to Matt and I was like, if Grace did this puzzle, she did this topic. And...
yeah. Okay. All right. We'll see.
Okay. I love keeping our listeners on their toes because, like...
And they're like, we don't care. For some reason, we feel like it's a big reveal what our topics are and if it's the same or not. But
I would love to hear from our listeners. Is it a big reveal, like, when we do our topics? Like, are you guys waiting with bated breath to know if we've done the same topic? Because sometimes I'm over here sweating spinal fluid to see if Grace is my topic.
Well, I feel like it's annoying when we do the same topic because...
Well, I did this topic really thoroughly. I tried to do it thoroughly so that in case we did have the same topic, we'd have some wiggle room. Anyway, let's do it. Do you want to start?
Sure. I have some hits from the Monday, July 4th, which we don't celebrate.
No, we don't.
New York Times by Bruce Haidt. 23 down, women's name that looks like Roman numerals for 51 plus 51. It was Lily. Speaking of a name that means something.
Nice.
This made me laugh, 22 across. Major accomplishment in baseball or horse racing. And it's the Triple Crown. And it just made me laugh that baseball also has a Triple Crown. Baseball continues to
amaze us. Me. Yes, and confuse. Amaze and confuse. Constantly in awe.
50 across, 2 interacting communities in the home of a college. Our town and gown.
I learned this by this crossword. Had you ever heard this before?
I had never heard it before, but I know that people call, like, well, I mean, I went to college in Chicago, so it wasn't an issue, but people who go to college in, like, smaller towns, there definitely is, like, a delineation between the students and then, like, the, local townspeople. Yes. But I wonder if they call them, like, townies and gownies.
Oh, well, so if you don't know what a town and gown means, I looked this up. According to Wikipedia, town and gown is a way to distinguish the communities of a given college town. For instance, town is the non-academic population and gown is the academic population. So, like, I went to school in New Haven, which I did not go to Yale, but
She went to a little college in New Haven.
Yeah, just like a small college in New Haven. And but I'll talk about Yale. Yale is like in the middle of New Haven, and it's like very clear what is and isn't Yale and what is and isn't New Haven. And it has that town and gown vibe, which I didn't even realize what the vibe was until I read this clue. So
I feel like it'd be strange to grow up in like a small town that's a college town because it has the combination of being a small town, yet there's like, thousands, tens of thousands of people from all over the world as well.
Right. And that's the other thing is I think, it's easier to tell like a town and gown situation if you're going to like a huge population type school. Like the school I went to, like my incoming class was like 1,200 people. It was very small.
Oh my gosh.
There are some incoming classes that are like 10,000 and you're like, yeah, so that wasn't me.
I feel like I would be annoyed. Probably like if I was like a towner, the gowners would annoy me. I'd be like, everything's catered to them.
Yeah. Exactly.
That's
you
me.
got them going to all the bars, all that stuff. Anyway, I'll talk about the Friday, July 1st New York Times by Christina Iverson and Caitlin Reed. 5 across. Had a meal during pregnancy. 8 for 2. I liked that a lot.
Nice.
18 across is one of our topics showing up. There's a lot of our topics showing up, so I'm going to point them all out to you today, or some of them anyway, because I want to reiterate that if you listen to our podcast, you will learn something, and then you will be able to fill in the crosswords a little easier every time. Okay.
That's our guarantee.
We guarantee it. 18 across, enterprise that's folding. And the answer was origami.
Ooh.
Isn't that cute? I like the play on words there. And we talked about origami in episode 91 with All Your Heart. So listen to that one. I also liked 33 across, sit beside a driver. The answer was ride shotgun. It's a fun one. 37 across, courtside seats, question mark. The answer was thrones.
Nice.
I like that it had nothing to do with sports. 57 across, tagline, question mark. Do not iron. Very, very good.
Smart.
And
people
then
are smart.
Yes, and then this one is not, it's not like a hit or a shit, but I just had to ask you. 12 down, cry at a restaurant. And the answer was waiter. Have you ever cried waiter at a restaurant?
No.
I've never either.
Were we out with you? No. I am like so nervous to ask a waiter for a check. Like I just like I'm waiting for them to make eye contact with me.
Right.
Because I don't want to appear like rude at all.
Right. And like, you know, in the US, wait staffs are trained to like be checking in consistently. So like you never really feel like you have to.
Oh, forget it. In Europe, you have to like go behind into the kitchen and ask for
You have to get on your hands and
yeah.
knees and beg them to bring out your check. And so, but even in Europe, I've never called waiter. You can just make eye contact with them and like raise your hand. So it's the actual act of crying waiter. Yes, I have raised my hand and like waved down a waiter before, but been like, waiter, please bring me. Like, no.
Sometimes I have like an intrusive thought of like, what if I just was like, hello, and like snapped? I would never do that, but.
Never say never. What else you got?
I did the July 4th New Yorker by Will Nediger. 32 down, taboo gathering, perhaps. Game night.
Oh, cute.
40 down, something to mind on one's commute, perhaps. The Gap.
The Gap. The Gap.
Mind the Gap. 46 down, upper Midwestern exclamation of dismay. Oofta.
Oofta?
Apparently that they actually do say that in Minnesota. That's like a known thing.
Y'all from Minnesota are wild. I love it.
You have to keep it interesting up there. It's
do.
like Arctic tundra most of the year.
Exactly. What else you got going? Except your lingo.
51 down, word after smart or dumb? And the answer is ass. And my question is, would you like be more offended if someone called you a smart ass or a dumbass?
Dumbass.
More offended?
Yeah. Smartass because it's like I said something witty and it pissed you off. That was exactly why I said it. Dumbass, I don't ever want to feel stupid. So small Chelsea comes out.
That's true. But I feel like if someone, well, I guess it depends the way they say it. Like if someone like is really sincere, then yeah, I wouldn't want to be called a dumbass. But like, what if I would rather someone think, I don't know. I don't want anyone to ever think that I'm like being elitist or condescending. So for someone to be like, oh, she's such a smart ass would make me feel bad.
True.
I acknowledge sometimes I am a dumbass. You know, I'm not above that.
Yeah,
so.
No, for sure. You're right. I guess it is.
I guess the question is like, would you rather someone think that you think you're smarter than them, or would you rather someone think that they're smarter than you?
Me smarter than them. I'm sorry.
That
is like I have like such a complex about intelligence.
Well, that's why you're an Aquarius. I would rather someone think that they're smarter than me because that's how you pull one over. I would know that I'm smarter than them. And that's the Virgo in me. But I want them to think that they're smarter than me.
And this is why we're yin and yanging here, guys.
Yeah.
I don't know
but
if you're
in a lot of
realizing
cases, I mean, there are certainly plenty of people who are smarter than me. In that case, let them have it.
For sure.
I don't want to have to make any big decisions.
For sure.
55 across. Courting disaster, ? Bad date?
I was wondering, it had to be something about a date. Yeah. Nice.
41 down, undergo a sci-fi change. Was mutate.
Mutate. It was like warp something. Okay, very good.
And 52 across on E. And I thought it was going to be like ecstasy, but it was out of gas.
Oh, that's a sad thing to think about, but good clue.
And then last one, 36 down, figure involved in a bust familiarly. I was thinking like bust, like statue.
Oh, okay.
But it was narco.
Oh, okay. You narcos.
Lots of good ones in that one.
Very good. I did the Saturday, July 2nd New York Times by Evan Kalish. I admit that I only did it because I saw Evan's name for the first time in a long time. So I was like, gotta do it. This one is for you, Grace. One Across. Painting that inspired an iconic Home Alone movie poster.
The Scream.
The Scream, of
by
course.
Edvard Munch.
Munch, which I feel like Rex Parker wrote to us once and was like, you pronounced it wrong. It's like, we know. And we apologize.
Yeah. That was a topic in a very, very early episode.
In fact, it was episode 12, Screams and Secrets. I can't remember what I did there. I should have looked, but it's an early episode. That was week 12. We're now in week 132.
We're much more polished now.
Yeah, I think so. Also from that puzzle, 36 Across, Hannah Gadsby's Nanette or Hassan Minaj. How do you say his last name? Minaj? Sorry, my phone is cracked, so I've lost the last letter of his name. I think it's Minaj. Minhaj. I'm sorry. Like I said, we're much more polished now. The answer, Hassan's Homecoming King, and the answer was Netflix specials. And I just like Netflix specials in the puzzle. Also, Nanette is amazing. Have you seen it?
No. No.
You should watch it. It's got a lot of like gay queer comedy, and it's also like very socially conscious. So I think you'd really like it.
The name sounds familiar. Maybe you've recommended it to me before.
Maybe I have. 3 down. Old Flame. Ex-Lover. Love to see it. I just thought it was a good one. 29 down. Commercial mascot with floppy ears. Do you know this? Tricks Rabbit.
Oh,
Silly course. Rabbit. Tricks are for kids. And then I really like this one. I think it's probably my favorite one from the week. 33 down. Some pieces in a bucket. And the answer was thighs. Like a bucket-o chicken.
Oh, I think it's like human thighs. No.
Chicken thighs, which...
It's always good to get your meal in a bucket. Any meal that comes in a bucket is going to be tasty.
Very, very true. I became a vegetarian in 2020, and the last time I was a vegetarian, which was a failed attempt many years ago. I was a vegetarian for 8 years, and then it failed because I went to college. Besides the point, I had never eaten hot dogs when I was a kid. Never. And then I turned vegetarian, and I felt like a pregnant woman. I don't know what it means to be pregnant, but I felt like a pregnant woman because all I could think about were hot dogs. And before being a vegetarian, I hated hot dogs. Couldn't eat them. And like one of the first things I ate after becoming not a vegetarian was a hot dog. And I'm into hot dogs now. But I've never been like... Your
body was calling out for all the specific nutrients it was missing from a hot dog.
It's true. But I feel like, I don't mind chicken wings, but I never craved fried chicken. Now that as a vegetarian, I like salivate over fried chicken thinking about it. And that's just a fun fact about me.
That's Chelsea.
That's me. What else you got?
The Tuesday, July 5th New York Times by Malgorzata Nowakowska and Eileen Williams.
Yes.
Shout out to you, 5 Across, word with dressing or days. Salad.
Yes.
Salad days.
Which the topic that I covered was salad days, and it's in episode 35, Salad Tossers. Shout out to Grace for an incredible episode title there.
Where sometimes you just take the easy one out.
I not only talked about where salad days, the phrase comes from, which is Shakespeare, but I also talked about the origin of some famous salads. So you got the best of both worlds in that topic. So
makes me want a Caesar salad just thinking about it.
Right?
Actually, this puzzle kind of surprised me to see in the New York Times because 67 Across, send nude pics maybe, and the answer was sext.
Shocking.
In the New York Times.
Shocking.
Apparently, Will Shorts thinks we can talk about sexting at the breakfast table. But the theme was 49, the revealer was 49 down, Taylor Blank, some of whose hit songs are featured in the answers to the starred clues. And it was Swift.
I was shocked.
And they had all these Taylor Swift songs, like Mine, Fearless, Babe. So an example, 10 Across, Workplace for the Seven Dwarves. Mine. 20 Across, like Daredevil, Seemingly, Fearless. 34 Across, Void, Blank Space. 54 Across, start of a classic breakup letter, Dear John. I'm not like a Swiftie or anything, but it was... Same. I know a lot of those songs, at least the name, so it was...
Yeah.
Cool
I was
to see them, but also that Taylor Swift would be featured as like a theme.
I know.
Because I feel like they usually shy away from stuff like that. So that was cool to see.
Yeah, it's like one thing to have Taylor Swift in the puzzle, but to have a whole theme dedicated to Taylor Swift, I'm like, who on Taylor's team do we need to tell about this? This is big news.
Yeah, does she even know?
Does she even know? Okay, let's see. The last one. What?
Did you do that puzzle? Because I have one more. I kind of have shit from that puzzle.
Oh, I did do that puzzle, but go ahead, tell me the shit.
It's not a real shit, but 59 across. Take stealthily, informally. And the answer was yoink. Would you say yoinking is stealthy?
I don't think I've ever used the word yoink.
I try not to use it, but I feel like I don't, in my mind, it's not like, like snag, I would say is more stealthy, but I feel like yoink is like obvious. I don't know. That's just me.
I'm literally going to have to trust you on this because I've never heard of the word yoink before the puzzle. So.
Oh, really?
If you were like, I yoinked her on the head, I would believe that meant to smack somebody on the head.
That's boinked.
You could put it. I woinked her.
She gets her yoink and boinks confused.
I do. It's like a problem. My last one is the Wednesday, July 6th, New Yorker by Brooke Husick. 22 across. Thanks, it blank pockets. Response to, I love your dress. And the answer is, thanks, it has pockets. Which you cannot take that very small joy away from us. Every time anybody says like, oh, I really like that skirt, I'm like, it has pockets. Because I'm insane and I'm also millennial. I can't help it. Anyway.
That's peak millennial humor. But we do like our pockets. So what are you going to do?
I mean, we are the generation that like we're on our hands and knees begging clothing companies put pockets on women's clothing. You're welcome. Anyway, 40 across, blank era. Artist's floundering phase. And the answer was flop era, which I'd never heard of before. But I'm like, am I living in my flop era right now?
You never heard that? How have you not heard that before?
I don't know.
You're on the internet.
I am chronically on the internet, and I had not heard that. So I don't know what to say. That's just me. But I liked it. I'll just say that I liked it. 55 across. They might sell their souls. And souls is capitalized. And the answer is car dealers. And I put that one in here for Grace, who...
My mom almost bought a Kia Soul. Yeah. And then but she ended up getting a different car. But then she told me, she's like, yeah, I almost got a Kia Soul. I was like, oh my God, thank God you did. And she's like, your sister had the same reaction. What? Why? What's so wrong about them? She likes the hamsters is why she wanted to get it. So that marketing actually does work on her.
It does.
But they're fine. Actually, you know what? I like when people do something a little different.
I do have to say, I don't like the way they look, but I have rented Kia Souls multiple times. Like, before Matt and I got our car, we would rent cars to like drive to the East Coast to see family, etc. I cannot tell you how many times we'd walk out and there's a fucking Kia Soul. There is so much goddamn visibility out of that windshield. I felt like nothing could come at me, and I would know. It's just so much visibility.
The Kia car that my mom ended up getting is similar to a Soul, and I agree. It's very easy to drive. Tons of visibility, even in that one. It doesn't have like, the Soul has like the full window on the corner. But
yeah. Anyway, just to say, it's nice in that regard. So, no shade to the Soul, and they got good colors.
Yeah, there's a green Kia Soul in my neighborhood.
So, and the last one from that is 10 down, facetious term for athletic competition. And the answer was sports ball, which felt relevant to Grace and I's lack of interest in sports.
Even though apparently I'm a huge baseball fan now.
Grace loves baseball. She won't stop talking to me about it. And that's that.
I feel like it's been coming up in my topics. Well, I liked from that one down, Jackson, who starred in the Disney Channel series Bunked. It was Sky Jackson.
I don't remember that.
I never watched that. I just know her because she's on Twitter.
Oh, is she? Okay.
Yeah. And I was too old for Bunked as well. Okay. But it was so cool to see it.
Did you remember Bug Juice on Disney Channel?
Yeah. But I never watched it, shockingly, as someone who actually went to sleepaway camp.
I watched it in like crazy because I always wanted to go to sleepaway camp. My parents never sent me. So
I watched, I think it was just called Fat Camp.
That was one.
On Disney Channel.
That was a movie.
No, they also had like a documentary style TV series.
Oh, problems abound.
Well, I mean, it was the same as any other sleepaway camp. I mean, obviously there's problematic issues with it. They would never do that now. I don't even know if they still have those camps now, but all I have to say is there's always so much drama in those. There was no drama at my sleepaway camp, mostly probably because they kept the boys and girls separate, but it was very wholesome. all this other at least I didn't get into anything because...
Right. Wholesome for, anyway, people who are straight at least.
Well, that's a whole other thing that we can talk about.
They don't think about that though when they're separating you from
the
opposite
pipeline
gender.
From like all girls wilderness camp to queer woman is a slide.
It's not a pipeline.
People keep
it is
popping up on like my Facebook and TikTok. I'm like, oh, you too? They got you too?
Anyway, I feel like that's it. Do you have anything else?
My last one, speaking of a lot of our topics came up this week, Wednesday, July 6th by Sam Koperwaz and Jeff Chen. 10 across, range for yodelers. Alps, which I feel like we've seen before, but...
Yes. Yodel. Yodeling.
Yeah, you got yodeling. And then this was another like, this is why I'm okay sometimes saying I'm an idiot because I never realized this. 25 across, brand so named because it limits ultraviolet light.
Oh.
Ray-Ban.
I also didn't know. What the hell?
Okay. All right.
How was I supposed to know?
Well, that's all I got.
That's all she's got. I think it's time to flip the coin and see if we do in fact have the same topic.
I'm not sure if you did my puzzle. So we'll see.
We probably didn't do the same topic then. Okay. I'm shocked that you didn't do this Anyway, I'm flipping the coin now.
So now you're going to have like an hour-long topic because you were so thorough in it, just in case.
Well, it's tails, so we're about to find out. Well.
Okay. Let me get ready. My topic comes from the Monday, July 4th New Yorker puzzle by Will Nediger. 14 down, Ren Fair address. And the answer was, my lord.
My lord. I did not do this topic.
Okay. I was like, that's like one that we would do. Because Chelsea and I like to pretend that we are servants, like to our friends, anytime we rent an Airbnb and we walk around being like, yes, my liege, you want us to get you a glass of water? We've set the table, my lord. I hope it's to your liking.
I'm sorry, my lord. Excuse me, my lord. Yeah.
And everyone loves it.
I didn't do this puzzle, so that's probably why I didn't do this topic.
All right. Well, I'm doing it on Renaissance fairs.
Yay! We should go to one.
We should. I have been to the big one outside Chicago twice, but after doing this topic, it makes me want to go again, and I think you would really like it. Yeah, it's here. It's a summertime thing.
Cool. We'll do it.
All right. So, a Renaissance fair. A Renaissance fair or festival, it can be a weekend thing, or sometimes they are month-long extravaganzas, like the one outside Chicago. Some are held at temporary locations, while others are created permanently. So even like when it's closed, the buildings are still there. It's like a full-on little permanent town that they built. Okay. They include music, food, arts, crafts, games, all as they were in the 1500s. There's turkey legs, jousting, corsets, shops to buy handmade medieval wares. They have it all. But we will talk about like the modern Renaissance fair later. But first, I want to say that this obsession with medieval times has been around since the 1700s with the Gothic revival. Okay. The Western world saw a spike in architectural styles mimicking medieval castles and cathedrals. And there was even medieval reenactments. They've been around since the 1800s. For example, the Eglinton Tournament of 1839 brought 100,000 spectators to the Scottish countryside for an afternoon of jousting and general revelry, which is basically what a Renaissance festival is.
General merriment to be had. Okay.
So this reminded me of the medieval torture device episode where we talked about how a lot of these like so-called medieval torture devices weren't even actually around in the Middle Ages. Right. Most of them were like made up in the 1700s when people were really obsessed with the Middle Ages and like reenacting it or talking about how the Middle Ages were barbaric.
Right.
So yeah, basically humans have always been obsessed with the Middle Ages or what we perceive to be the Middle Ages.
Okay.
If you want more on that, listen to episode 110. You've got it all wrong. But let's jump to 1963 when the modern Renaissance fair, as we know it, first started.
Okay, so, 63. Interesting.
Yes. It was created by an LA school teacher, Phyllis Patterson, and her husband, Ron. They created an after-school art and theater workshop in their backyard because Phyllis wasn't happy with like the lack of art education to kids at her school.
Makes sense.
So kids would go, practice different arts, theater styles, whatever. But it was so popular that a local radio station hit her up and was like, let's create like a full weekend event and it could be a fundraising thing. It was in May, and it was called the Renaissance Pleasure Fair and May Market.
Cute.
And you can find photos online, and they're really cute. We'll post on our Instagram.
Yes.
But this fair became an annual event, and it opened a second location in Northern California. They were both organized by a nonprofit that Phyllis Patterson created called Living History Center.
Cute.
But the idea to like have a Renaissance fair spread pretty quickly. The next one to open that like wasn't run by Phyllis and her company was the Minnesota Renaissance Festival in 1971.
Okay.
The appeal of Renaissance festivals in the U.S. ties back to another topic we've covered, shopping malls. So, if you remember, Victor Grunbaum was the Austrian socialist. He built the first shopping mall in Minnesota, indoor shopping mall, and there was like this desire to create walkable downtowns and communities in suburban areas that didn't have that. A lot of people were moving out to the suburbs at this time, and there was just, it was built for cars, not for people.
Right.
Jules Smith was a Minnesota real estate lawyer. He created the first Minnesota Renaissance Festival that I talked about earlier. That was like the first one outside of Phyllis's stuff. Mm-hmm. And a lot of the design was similar to how indoor shopping malls were designed. So there's like different stalls and homes arranged in villages connected by walking trails. You could find food, shops, entertainment, all within walking distance.
Nice.
Fun fact, Penn and Teller, the magician duo's first show happened at the Minnesota Renaissance Festival in 1975.
Small world. All these things connect. And this is, again, I'm just reiterating, you gotta listen to the podcast. You'll have so many different fun facts.
Lots of context.
Lots of context. You'll get what we're talking about here.
So the Renaissance Fair caught the eye of Jules Smith's friend, James Roose. Now, James Roose was the man who developed the second ever indoor shopping mall in Glen Burnie, Maryland. So even though we talked mostly about Victor in the shopping mall episode, Roose was like another big player at the time. Mm-hmm. Roose was born in Maryland. He grew up to own his own mortgage banking firm. In the 1940s, he was very involved in rehabbing Baltimore slums. He served on the President's Advisory Committee on Government Housing Policies and Programs, where he worked to create better places for people to live. Now, I'm skeptical because he is a businessman at the end of the day, but the articles made it seem like he was genuinely interested in creating livable spaces for people, both in suburbs and also like rundown downtown areas that had been abandoned.
Okay.
He ended up designing and building his own dream town in Columbia, Maryland. Reminds me of the Pullman episode but this was like
and the Epcot episode.
Yes, but he wasn't like employing everyone in the town.
Yeah.
This is a quote from a Smithsonian Magazine article called James W. Rouse's Legacy of Better Living Through Design by Jimmy Stamp. Quote, in Rouse's view, we're at our best in smaller communities where there's a sense of responsibility to one's city and to one's neighbor. He imagined a beautiful, self-sustaining American city, a new America, really, that fostered economic, racial, and cultural harmony. So he put together a team of planners and designers, but also he involved scholars, government officials, and sociologists to, like, design the perfect town. He took a chance on a young architect named Frank Gehry, and this was one of his first commissioned projects.
Okay.
But anyways, Columbia, Maryland is like a whole other topic for a different episode, but It relates to this episode because Rouse commissioned Jules Smith, the Minnesota guy, to open up a Ren Fair in Columbia, and it stayed there for 7 years. That was like one of the first really big ones before moving to a different location in Maryland.
Okay.
But I thought it was interesting because it showed that Ren Fairs and like an interest in going to them was part of this like fantasy of living in a real community that wasn't accessible at the time because everyone had just moved to suburbs and was like, why am I like so lonely and isolated from everyone?
Right. Suburbs can feel very sprawling and, isolated. I feel like there are suburbs that are smaller. Like I grew up in a very, very small town, 2 miles long. Everybody knew each other. Like my brother just visited and he was like he was like running down the list of names of everybody that lives in town. He's like, this is what they're doing. And like, there is some of that like small town community where you can like call up anybody and they'll do this thing for you. Call up that guy, he'll do that, and so on and so forth. But even still, like we lived in tract housing, like it was very separated and like.
Well, I feel like a lot of the difference too is if people work in that small town, because I feel like a lot of people live in the suburbs but don't work there.
Yes.
So they're not as involved in the community. And I think even there's some bigger suburbs that do have like a little downtown area, but I feel like if you're ever on suburb TikTok and you see like it's just roads and strip malls and parking lots and
Have you heard of the Main Street USA program?
I think I have.
So
where they're trying to like build walkable downtowns.
Yes, and this has been around for a while, and there's a bunch of towns near where I grew up that won the sponsorship or like whatever it is, like where they give you a ton of money to revitalize your downtown, and those downtowns are gorgeous, and they truly have like changed what it means to like live in that town. And to your point of like not working in your town, people like work on their main street. They have their small businesses, like their kids go to school there, like there's festivals and art fairs and like all this stuff, and like everything you need happens in your small community instead of like living in a suburb, driving 40 minutes to work and so on and so forth. Like that can be so draining and isolating. But anyway, yeah.
Sorry. I feel like Memphis is a good city like that, where they're really into like local businesses, and they, have they're like rehabbing different areas to be used then for like local businesses and to places where like people can socialize and build community. But anyways,
back to
Ren fairs.
Yes.
There was this other element of like counterculture at Ren fairs. So an article on Bloomberg called "The Utopian Vision That Explains Renaissance Fairs" by David Dudley says, quote, "The rabble-rousing atmosphere of these bawdy carnivals touched a nerve in anxious Cold War America. Not long after, hippies started turning up in dandyish frocks, rock bands began to pillage medieval history, and the rest is history. You can probably trace a line from the Pattersons' backyard," that's Phyllis Patterson, "to Led Zeppelin 4 to Burning Man." And more than just accepting everyone, Ren fairs invited everyone to play along. Another quote, "The reality-bending appeal of these early SoCal gatherings, which established the interactive no spectators vibe that carries on in today's variants, remains a big part of the festival formula. Here was something you could participate in that was a little wild, but it's also safe. It's a form of shared fantasy." There is a lot of like, you can go in character to the Renaissance Fair and like interact in character.
So this is like our bridesmaid fantasy.
Exactly.
Okay.
So what if you're interested in going to a Renaissance fair? Well, you're in luck because there's so many around the U.S. You could probably find one pretty close to you. And each fair has their own historicity, as they call it. For example, the St. Louis Renaissance Fair aims to recreate a 16th century French village. The Great Lakes Medieval Fair and Marketplace hosts an alter ego time travel experience, speaking of your alter ego, and a Roman-themed weekend.
Cute.
The Maryland Renaissance Fair has a unique storyline every year that takes place over the festival's run. So they like, put on the website every year, maybe the king is like trying to find a wife for their son, and like
cool.
They change it up every year.
Yeah.
There's a Sherwood Forest Fair in McDade, Texas. That's like a Robin Hood theme.
Which we've talked about Robin Hood on the podcast too.
Yes. The Carolina Renaissance Fair has a Living Mermaids area, which we've also talked about mermaids. That's one we need to go to, right?
Yes.
Some other common themes are Oktoberfest, All Hallows Eve, Heroes and Villains, Barbarian Invasion, and Pirate Adventure.
What are we doing on our weekends if not going to every single themed Ren fair?
Obviously. We need to work on our costumes.
Yeah.
So speaking of, what should you wear to a Renaissance fair? Well, first you can just wear normal clothes. That is very common. The 2 times I've gone, I've just worn normal clothes, and there's other people dressed like that. But if you want to dress up, there's plenty of different options. You could be a tavern maiden, a Renaissance woman, a knight, a dragon slayer, an archer. A lot of people dress up like Game of Thrones characters or characters from video games that are like supposed to be taking place at that time. You can even be a pirate, another topic we did. It's historically accurate for the time. And there's a Shrek Renaissance Festival in Wisconsin, or it's Shrek Fest. But we've talked about potentially going to that. Generally, darker, vibrant colors were attributed to wealth and high society. That's because the darker dyes were more expensive and they accentuated like gold and jewelry. So if you wanted to be like a rich person at a Renaissance festival, you could wear dark colors. Red is a color of high social status. Purple is a color of royalty. Green represents youth, spring, and love. So yeah, I mean, your options are endless. The thing is you have to commit to like getting an outfit together.
There's a girl on TikTok who posts her Ren outfits, and she looks amazing, but she has the most gorgeous, like, orange red hair, and it just makes me want to dye my hair that red color we've always been talking about before going to a Ren fair, because I feel like it would just make me fit the vibe more.
It could be the time.
Could be the time.
Something cool that I found in my research is that there's an abandoned Renaissance fair in Virginia.
What?
So most fairs are held at permanent locations where the structures stay up all year. They like legitimately build these structures. This fair was called the Fredericksburg Fair and was built on a land once owned by Mary Ball Washington, George Washington's mother. I don't know if that's relevant, but it cost $5 million to build, opened in May of 1996, but it wasn't as successful as they hoped, probably due to the fact that it was built on essentially a swamp and the weather was horrible.
Ooh.
It closed in 1999, and the land is still used by a sportsman and hunting club, but the Ren Fair buildings haven't been touched. So there's like, you can find pictures of that online. Some guy flew like a drone, and it's like a medieval village, but with like vines everywhere.
That's so crazy.
Going on the buildings. It's very cool. But it is like monitored by, officials there. So don't try and go. And a lot of the buildings are like very dangerous because they haven't been kept up. But the pictures are cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to end with a quote from the Bloomberg article talking about the Maryland Renaissance Fair. Quote, Revel Grove remains a peaceful space, a human-scale hamlet of mossy old half-timbered buildings that appears to be surrounded by trackless woods. Its winding lanes invite aimless strolling, rather than marching from attraction to attraction as visitors in a conventional amusement parks might do. A Ren Fest may not be a very authentic way to experience how our predecessors lived, but it's a great way to reconnect with what often feels so wrong about modernity.
Amazing. Well, now we're going to go to a Ren Fair, listeners. Well, we will report back. I feel like we tell you we're doing something all the time. We literally never report back, but I promise we'll try to report back.
Some secrets are meant to be kept.
Yes. We like to keep you on your toes. Amazing. Oh, now I want to go to a Ren Fair and eat like a turkey.
I want to go to like a cool themed one, though.
That, yes.
But then it's like, what do I dress up as? I don't know.
I know. Let's not stress out about it just yet.
Yeah.
We'll get there. And it'll look great. My topic comes from the Wednesday, July 6th New Yorker by Brooke Husick. 58 across. Performance that may include fireman spins and outside leg hangs. And the answer is pole dance.
Amazing.
I'm talking about pole dance.
I feel like I flagged that as a potential, but then I looked into Renaissance Fair first and was like, okay, I could do this.
Ah, yes. So pole dance today.
Alrighty.
Have you ever seen pole dance? Whether it be like at a strip club or like at an exercise class, if you've tried pole dance?
I have. Yes, I've seen pole dancing.
Very good. I have also seen pole dancing. I worked in a film with somebody who is really into pole dancing for exercise, and I follow her on Instagram, so I see pole dancing all the time.
It comes up on TikTok sometimes, and I'm like mesmerized by
it's insane
how like strong. I mean, they make it look so easy too.
It's right. It's not easy, but you're so strong, and it's shocking how good some people are at it. Anyway, more power to them. Anyway, we're talking about what?
Wait, sorry. Did you see that it was like a viral video where it was some club that had like a 2-story pole? And
no.
A person like fell. They were fine, apparently somehow, but they like slid down the whole thing.
No,
anyway.
That's shocking.
Yeah.
And horrifying.
It's like, you don't need a pole that tall then, I think.
No. God. Anyway, that's scary.
Yeah. I would never get on a 2-foot pole.
A 2-foot pole
unless
or 2-story
like
pole?
A fire, yeah. Unless it's like a firefighter type of situation where it's like, I knew I had to just like slide down to get to the next floor.
You just got to slide down. Yeah, like if you're doing like an outside leg hang all the way down, I don't know about that.
Yeah, no. The spin around, no.
Okay. So be careful out there on your poles, listeners. But yeah, we're talking about pole dance today. For those of you who have no idea what pole dancing is, it is a combination of dance and acrobatics centered around a vertical pole. It's a performance art. It takes place not only at strip clubs, or as Wikipedia and many other articles refer to them as gentlemen's clubs, which is so barf to me. It's not only a form of erotic dance, but also a mainstream form of fitness, and it's practiced in gyms and dedicated pole dance studios. And it requires a significant amount of strength, muscular endurance, coordination, flexibility, and in some cases, sensuality. And there are different...
Well, I'm screwed.
Yeah, we're...
This is not the sport for me.
Pretty much out. As soon as they were like significant strength, I was like, next. Check, please.
I just don't understand how you don't get like burned from the pole, like rug burn type situation.
I feel like you have to like wear, or like there's like some sort of baby powder or oil involved where like you won't get burned. So That's crazy.
Guess I'll never know.
She'll never know. I guess I could have researched that, but that is not something that I covered in this topic. So if you're left wondering, keep curious, as we say. Anyway, so yeah, there's different types of pole dancing, depending on what you're doing it for, but more on that a little bit later. We're going to talk about, where does pole dancing come from? Well, there isn't any one specific place that we can say, like, this is the origin of pole dancing, really. We kind of can, but we can acknowledge a couple ancient fitness practices that seem directly connected to the development of contemporary pole dance. The first is known as Chinese pole. Chinese pole dates back to the 12th century, and it was used by Chinese circus performers. These performers would use a pole approximately 3 to 9 meters in height and about 2 to 3 inches in diameter to perform acrobatic tricks in full body costumes. The pole itself was coated with like a rubber-like substance that allowed the performers to like hold on better. And then they would display like climbing, sliding, stretching, holding positions with various, forms and stuff. Mm-hmm. Okay. And Chinese pole is actually still performed in circuses today and by Chinese acrobats. For instance, Cirque du Soleil features Chinese pole routines in many of their shows. The most famous Chinese pole trick is known as the flag, where the artist will hang straight out from the pole with his or her hand. So imagine holding the pole and just like being completely out like a flag.
Amazing.
And some people can do push-ups like that.
That is not scientifically correct.
It will literally never happen. I'm over here trying to do one push-up without the resistance bands around my upper arms. And it's not going to happen. So you're never going to see me doing the flag anytime soon.
If I could do that, I would do it all the time. Like just out on the street as like a party trick.
Well, I'm over here. I got my resistance bands on to do a push-up. And I'm like, hey, Neptune, you want to see a trick? I'm like, look at this shit. And then like I do the push-up and I can barely push myself up. Even
Neptune's like, oh, whatever.
He's like, Mom, you're embarrassing me.
But anytime it was, imagine if it was like windy outside, you'd be like, hey, check out this wind.
Imagine doing the body wave as the flag. But yeah, okay. So the flag requires a very strong upper body, as you can imagine. Very few people can actually do the push-ups, and even fewer people can rotate their legs around in a circle. So like you have to hold it and like your legs are like move. God help them.
Another thing, I have sweaty hands, so I'm out. For that reason, I'm out.
Imagine you're doing the flag and you're sliding down the pole. Yeah, you would have fallen down that 2-story pole. Good luck to you. The world record for the longest human flag held stands at 1 minute and 5 seconds.
Wow.
That seems short, but then you think about how fucking hard it must be to do, and it seems very long.
Hold a plank for a minute. Let me know if it feels short.
No, I will not. Okay, so now there's another ancient like pole fitness game competition, and it's called Malakam. It dates back over 800 years. It's from India. Basically, a gymnast will perform aerial yoga or gymnastics postures along with like a wide range of wrestling grips from a stationary or hanging wooden pole. It was originally used as a means of training wrestlers. The word literally translates to wrestler of pole, malakam. Mm-hmm. The pole is smooth and wooden with a base diameter of 55 centimeters, and it's a thinner diameter at the top of 35 centimeters, so it kind of like tapers. And then it's sometimes like rubbed down with castor oil to avoid friction because, like you were saying, you don't want to get rug burn or pole burn. And then, of course, the people that are performing malakam wear little to no clothing or shoes to allow their skin a better grip on the pole. It's used to develop speed, reflexes, concentration, and coordination. It helps you to increase your stamina, strength, and endurance. And it was believed that this type of training was beneficial to practicing many other types of sports, such as wrestling, judo, horse riding. It also improves your flexibility, swiftness, rhythm, all those types of things. Nowadays, there are national malakam championships involving a bunch of the different states in India. There are 3 different competitive types. There's pole malakam, hanging pole malakam, and rope malakam.
Talk about rug burn.
And I'm sure that there are other cultures that have some sort of pole fitness or pole competition. in them. If it's one of your cultures, let us know. But those are two of the big ones that show up in the research a lot, saying like, this is where pole dancing originates from. And I think that's a really interesting thing to keep in mind, is that like poles have been used for fitness or entertainment for a very long time. That being said, like pole dancing doesn't organically originate from those two forms. So let's move into more of like where pole dance actually originates from. We're going to start with a history of exotic dance, okay? And how that intersects with all the pole nonsense in the world. So exotic dance has been around forever, like literally, okay? People can move, they can take their clothes off, they can be sexy, okay? It's been around forever. The first documented striptease was actually written in a myth, a Sumerian myth of the goddess of love, Inanna, who had to descend into the underworld to search for her faithless lover, Dumazud. Okay? At each of the 7 gates of the underworld, she would remove a single piece of clothing until at last she stood naked in front of the last gates of hell in search for this lover. So that's like the first written down striptease, okay? And some believe that the myth of Inanna influenced Salome's Dance of the 7 Veils when she danced before King Herod in the Bible. Although it wasn't called the Dance of the 7 Veils until Oscar Wilde wrote Salome the play in the 1800s. But still, so you've got Inanna like descending and taking 7 pieces of clothing off. You've got Salome doing the Dance of the 7 Veils, removing 7 veils. And then in ancient Greece, there were different forms of sex workers, different classes of sex workers. There were female dancers, acrobats, musicians, and they were noted for dancing naked in front of audiences of men. In ancient Rome, there was dance featuring stripping as part of entertainments at a festival called Floralia, which was in April, and it was to honor the goddess Flora. So stripping and exotic dance evolved from there. Okay, so that's kind of like the origins of documented exotic dance, and there's many, many other examples of documented exotic dance throughout time. So how do we take all of this and combine it into one form, the pole dance? Are you familiar with the phrase hoochie coochie?
No.
Okay. Well, some of you might be familiar with the phrase hoochie coochie or hoochie hoochie. No?
No. Well,
Okay.
coochie coochie, like for a baby?
No,
Like coochie
just
coochie coo?
well, yes, that's the words, but not for a baby.
Okay, then no.
Okay, totally fine. So hoochie coochie refers to a popular dance style from the mid to late 1800s. It was a catch-all phrase to describe several sexually provocative belly dances in the 1800s. Okay, so these dances were performed in the West at many of the world's fairs. For instance, the Crystal Palace exhibition in London in 1851, the Centennial exhibition in Philadelphia in 1876, the World's Fair in Paris in 1889, and the Chicago World's Fair in 1893. Before being performed in Chicago, which is the last World's Fair that I just mentioned, the dances were frequently called muscle dances, stomach dances, danse du ventre, and sometimes kuta kuta. Or any number of geographical or ethnic designations, such as Egyptian dance, Algerian dance, or, quote, Oriental dance, okay?
Chelsea's doing air quotes. By the
There's
way.
lots of air quotes flying about here. This is why you gotta watch us on YouTube if you're so curious. But where does this hoochie coochie dance come from, or this muscle dance or stomach dance come from? So the hoochie coochie is likely a descendant of the belly dance, which is an overarching term to encompass many forms of rural Egyptian or indigenous Egyptian dance. One such example of the belly dance thought to be an influence of the hoochie coochie is from the gwazi. The gwazi is a local practice in Egypt describing female dancers who dance in return for money, okay? The very first gawazis performed unveiled in the streets using rapid hip movement and brass cymbals on their fingers or hand castanets. And it characterized their dance by like a certain type of belly dance, right? Okay. They were mostly known for not moving their feet, just like their hips and their stomach. Okay. Gwazi performed in many places, but usually during festivals or other festive occasions. And they were also often just hired to entertain men. Many people disapproved of gwazi because they felt it was improper for women to dress with their stomachs exposed and to dance in such a way. The particular dance that inspired the hoochie coochie was the gwazi, quote, dance of the bee, in which the performer disrobes as she searches for an imaginary bee trapped within her garments.
Oh my gosh, amazing.
Okay. It's amazing, right? And so this is like an ancient or like rural dance form from Egypt that the Europeans become obsessed with this, like, for lack of a better term, like Orientalism, or like, you know, they become obsessed with things from a foreign land and they bring it back and they put it in their World's Fair and they're like, watch these, you know, Egyptian women do their crazy Oriental Egyptian stomach dance. And then it travels all around the world and eventually lands in the US, where it becomes known as the hoochie coochie. Okay. Thank you, America, for your great naming.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So this belly dance got the name hoochie coochie after premiering, quote unquote, at the Chicago World's Fair in the late 1800s into the early 1900s. After the World's Fair, it became popular for these like dancers to basically be hired by traveling circuses. And so these traveling circuses or dance troupes would travel all around the U.S. And these women would perform this dance like at these little fairs, right? So we got fairs on the brain here. Ren fairs, hoochie coochie fairs, whatever. And they would travel all around the place and entertain crowds for money. And it wasn't until the 1920s that the dancers started introducing a pole element to their dance by gyrating their hips against poles in their tent to entice customers to come inside and watch. Okay? And then these traveling carnivals with these types of hoochie coochie dances evolved into burlesque theaters, where many famous strip acts, quote unquote strip acts, were born. There's a ton of famous like strippers or strip acts from this time, but this one was like caught my attention the most. A famous trapeze artist named Charmian, who performed a disrobing act on stage while flying a trapeze, which is bonkers to me.
Impressive.
Incredibly impressive. Grace and I have done trapeze, and I could never disrobe while doing trapeze because I could barely hold on to the damn pole. Okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's like a different level of
talk about arm strength, right? That was... A lot of that was actually core strength, right? With trapeze.
You'd be surprised. Trapeze is mostly core strength.
Yes, we would know. We've done it many times. Okay. One fun thing about this like disrobing trapeze act, Thomas Edison actually filmed the act in 1901 and made a film out of it called Trapeze Disrobing Act. And I think you can watch it, which I think is interesting.
I think you could have had a better name for it.
Yeah, their film was new then. They didn't really know what the hell was going on.
They're just like describing it.
Exactly. It's like a photo that moved. Which I guess is exactly what film is. Anyway, so of course lots of people disapproved of these sorts of acts in New York City in the 30s. Burlesque was actually prohibited from having striptease performances. And even today, there are still tons of bans on strip clubs in many places. And they're usually enforced on smaller localized levels. So you could have like, I mean, your town might not fully legalize or like ban strip clubs, but they might have restrictions on where strip clubs can be built, like so far away from a school and so on and so forth, because like they're trying to not what's the word, corrupt the youth, etc. But burlesque clubs evolved into strip clubs and gentlemen's clubs and so on and so forth. The earliest recorded exotic pole routine in a strip club was in 1968 at Mugwump Strip Joint in Oregon. What a name, Mugwump.
Mugwump?
Yes.
All right.
The very first lady to perform this exotic striptease pole dance routine was a lady named Belle Jangles. What a name. Okay. And what I find really interesting is that after her performance, using a pole in striptease caught on like wildfire, right? But mostly in Canada initially. It was huge in Canada.
Our neighbors to the north.
Neighbors to the north. So much so that there is a woman named Faunia Dietrich, who was the first woman to offer classes on how to exotic pole dance, which she started in Canada. And now I think you can take classes in Las Vegas with her, which I think is interesting. Pole dancing is now a popular...
When was this?
So she started teaching classes, I think, in the 80s.
Oh, okay. Pole dancing keeps you young, I guess.
It does keep you young. I mean, pole dancing, like,
I mean, it's a real workout.
It is. And the first pole dance in a strip club was in 1968, so not that long ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, pole dancing is now a popular form of both recreational and competitive sport. It's practiced in a variety of settings, sexual, non-sexual, and athletic. There is even a campaign from the International Pole Sports Federation to include competitive pole dancing in the Olympics.
Amazing.
As they should. Outside of the Olympics, there are numerous competitions where you can compete as a pole dancer. The World Pole Sport Championship, U.S. Pole Federation Championship, Pole Art, Miss Pole Dance America, and the International Pole Masters Cup Championship. But bringing us back to the clue, I want to highlight a couple pole dance moves. The two from the clue are Firemen Spins and outside leg hangs. I'll start with those. The Fireman Spin. What does that evoke when you hear it?
Like sliding down a pole while you're vertical, but like spiraling around it like a fireman. Although I feel like the firemen don't spiral. Maybe they do.
Maybe they should.
Maybe they should. Get them down faster.
Yeah. So a fireman spin is spinning from the top of the pole down with your legs wrapped around a pole like a fireman. So essentially The outside leg hang. What does that sound like to you?
I don't know. Maybe you're just only your legs are holding on.
So one leg is wrapped around the pole. So imagine this is my leg and I'm wrapped around the pole. Okay, like this. This is my foot. I'm wrapped around the pole. And it's wrapped at like the top of your body and like the rest of your body is hanging beneath it. And the other leg is completely out like this. So it's like a corkscrew and your body is completely down towards the ground.
Amazing.
Then we have the aerial invert. You hold the pole with both hands, right? And you have both of your legs entirely outstretched to the sides in front of you. Like this. And you're upside down.
Amazing.
You gotta watch on YouTube, guys. I'm trying to do some recreations.
With her arms.
With my arms. And then the ankle hang. You grip onto the pole with your ankles, like this is your ankles holding onto the pole, and then you're completely straight, like almost like parallel with the pole, facing downward. Like your head is almost touching the ground. That's just a couple of them. You can actually Google like pole dance moves. There are some great resources. You can like the first one that pops up, they got a list at like a 50 to 60 moves, all in alphabetical order. You just scroll and there's great pictures. It's amazing.
There you go.
I want to end on this. So, while historically there are forms of pole sports, pole dancing as a form of exotic dance and now exercise craze was pioneered by women, okay? Sure, there were pole sports, but it was the hoochie coochie dancers and traveling circus groups that were the pioneers of contemporary pole dance, which we have to recognize that. I'm going to read a quote from Pole Parlor, which is like a blog written by sex workers and strip club workers and pole dancers. And the post is called Why We Need to Acknowledge the Real History of Contemporary Pole Dance. And it talks about the practice of whitewashing pole dance. It is a mean to kind of like validate white people's participation in it. Okay. So now that people are using pole dance as an exercise, they're trying to find ways to say, oh, well, it wasn't just strippers that do pole dancing. It was actually an ancient Chinese practice and an ancient Indian practice. And that's why I'm doing it. It's like the pole dance that you're participating in comes from a different type of sex worker, the hoochie coochie dancers. So wake up. And it's also okay that they do sex work. So that's like a whole other thing. Anyway, so this is the quote. It comes down to an ingrained sociological belief system that women's sexuality is a thing to be ashamed of, and morality is directly linked to how openly or prolifically a woman is sexual. So because the development of pole from sex workers is considered, quote, shameful, but people want to do it, they need to find a means of justification to, quote, cleanse themselves morally and absolve themselves of any association with, quote, dirty women, lest they be painted with the same brush. Fact, we, as in the pole dance community, are one of the few female-dominated sports in the world, and our industry was created by some badass women. They worked against countless odds and broke down many barriers to create the industry as we know it today, where now we have the freedom to practice pole in its array of styles, be that sexy, athletic, artistic, etc. So stop trying to delegitimize that, and instead, let's celebrate the impressive feat of social progress. End quote.
There we go.
Very nice. So God, I love women. And bravo to all the women that came before all the other pole dancers. So
there's a pole dancing fitness place. I don't know where it is. I've walked by it multiple times, but it's like windows out on the sidewalk. It was like, any exercise class, I don't even like people to be able to walk by and peek in.
I know. I totally agree. It has nothing to do with it being a pole dance. It has everything to do with it me sweating like a pig in front of everybody.
And just being, like, for me, generally uncoordinated. And
right. When they're like, you need to be coordinated to do pole, I'm like,
yeah, it's like,
it sounds like fun, but I literally guess I can never do it. So
yeah, it needs to be like in a dark room.
Yeah. And there's so much I could have talked about with pole dance, like, but I don't know. I feel like that covered a big section of it. So
very interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
now you know what hoochie coochie is.
No,
God bless her.
I've always wondered. I think I saw like pole dancing because when you asked me if I'd seen before, I had to like really think. But I think I saw it in Amsterdam at like they have all this different stuff in the red light district, like shows that you can go see. And it was very impressive.
They're so impressive. I love watching the woman that I worked with once on a film do her pole dance routines. And I'm just like, what I find equally impressive is like, you think people who do pole have to have these quote perfect bodies or like perfectly fit bodies. It's like women of all shapes and sizes can do pole. And like to see so many different types of women just like throwing their body around on this pole, it does feel empowering. Like maybe I could do something like that if I like actually had the brain to put my mind to something for longer than 5 minutes. But,
that's the first hurdle.
The first hurdle, yeah. And then maybe pole. First Ren Fair, then pole.
First, hire bridesmaids for hire.
Yes.
Business plan.
Yes.
Then Ren Fair, then pole dancing.
Yes, in that order. And that's
all
us.
Right.
That's all you need to know.
That's us. Classic us.
Classic.
If y'all want to keep talking to us, you can follow us on Twitter at the Good Eve Girls.
Or head over to Instagram, check out some awesome photos at the Good Evening Girls.
Or head over to TikTok at the Good Eve Girls.
Wow.
And until then, by the way, we won't have an episode next week.
Oh, scheisse. Sorry, we didn't mean to put it the very last minute, but
sorry,
it's true.
Sometimes you save bad news till the end, but we're taking a break for personal reasons. Everything's fine, but sometimes you just need a break. So
it's summer. It's break time. Yeah. Anyway, so until then,
we'll see you in 2 weeks then.
And please keep curious, listeners. Can't wait to see you again very, very soon. Goodbye.
Bye.